Hey guys, Sean from Now This Election here. We're live at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. I'm here with Governor Bill Weld. He is the Libertarian vice presidential nominee the Libertarian nominee for vice president. Governor Weld.
Sean, great to be with you again.
Nice to be with you too. We've spoken before. You might have seen the pieces we put out. Governor Weld spoke about the possible breaking up of the Republican Party and his own personal crusade for gay rights as a Republican governor in the 90s in Massachusetts, which was very groundbreaking at the time.
Well, it was. I was out there by myself for a decade, yeah.
Kind of going against the party and opposing what the rest of the party was doing, and that must have been difficult.
Well, I certainly did it for a long time.
yeah, but it was worth it. I mean, as you saw the wave of LGBT rights that crossed across the country.
Well, you know, people came around. I actually appointed the woman who wrote the decision holding marriage equality to be constitutionally compelled. I was proud of that. That became the Supreme Court decision, which established it across the United States. So I think that all came out of Massachusetts and my appointee, and I was proud to have done that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And of course, now it's the law of the land. Let's just cut into current events. I've been to both the conventions, and I've seen Bernie Sanders supporters and Donald Trump supporters, way more Donald Trump supporters, really get behind the idea that Hillary Clinton should be in prison, saying, you know, lock her up, Hillary for prison instead of Hillary for president. What do you think of the idea of that? That people are saying this about a former Secretary of State and nominee for president?
Yeah, no, I'm not buying it at all. I've known her for a long time. And you know, she's a nice person, an intelligent person. She's no criminal. You know, I think what it comes from is this partisan gridlock that we have in Washington, where both the Republicans and the Democrats have gotten to the extremes. You got to be either a liberal Democrat or a conservative Republican. They wake up in the morning and they think that their job is to kill the other party and to keep their own monopoly power in Washington, and that produces very bad public policy because it's the enemy of common sense. I blame both parties for that.
And by going against each other like that, they're going against the common goals we have, which are to keep America safe, to keep America prosperous, and America first.
Yeah, no, it just doesn't produce any good policy. I think that the duopoly, the two-party monopoly in Washington has long since outlived its usefulness and is actively hurting the United States now. In a way, our candidacy, the Libertarian Party, offers a third way, which is, you know, fiscally responsible and also socially tolerant and inclusive. And our point is that does not describe either major party today. The Republicans are most certainly not socially tolerant and inclusive. Look at that platform. And the Democrats are going to have a hard time holding the line against excessive spending, given all the promises that have been made during this campaign. President Obama is going to leave office with a national debt of $20 trillion. That's not incidental. That's a threat to our economy, and people should understand that, because that influences the number of jobs that are available to pay wages, which people want.
But with both the parties being having very disappointing platforms to a lot of people, that might drive more people to third parties this year. But what do you say to the criticism that's often the first thing to come up in these conversations, that it's a vote for the other candidate, or that if you're a Trump supporter and you vote Libertarian, that's a vote for Hillary Clinton?
Like I say, the R's and the D's both want to say, they have a shared interest in saying everyone has to be an R or a D. That's the only way to participate in politics. Well, that's nothing but a lie. And my hope is that this year, if we can get into the presidential and vice presidential debates, we'll be able to show ourselves to be the ticket with the most common sense. We obviously have the most executive experience, two former two-term governors and successful two-term governors. You know, if we get to that position, I think we could run the table. So, you know, when people ask us about wasted votes now, we say, sure, you want to waste your vote? Go vote for Trump or Clinton.
That's good. So you mentioned getting into the debates, and now your opponents would be Tim Kaine and Mike Pence. What do you have to say about them? How do you see them as candidates?
I think Tim Kaine's a good guy. Haven't studied his record yet. Mike Pence, I know I agree with on some areas like education. He's way more socially conservative than I am. I think in Congress he was a very strong anti-choicer on the issue of abortion, and he did promote legislation in Indiana that was widely seen as hostile to gays and lesbians. He did walk it back a little bit, but his first shot out of the chute was not a good one there.
I may be wrong on this, but I believe that Tim Kaine did get endorsed by Planned Parenthood. Did support the choice. Am I wrong on that? The VP pick?
Oh, I don't know, but that's fine. I'm a big Planned Parenthood supporter.
No, of course, as am I. But I mean, people do evolve on their views. If he was against choice.
No. I was saying the stuff I said about being a social conservative. That was Mike Pence. That wasn't Kaine.
Gotcha. Sorry about that, guys. We got some questions from users.
First question is from Ben, who's asking, what steps are you taking to get into the debates?
What steps are you taking to get into the debates?
Well, we're getting around the country and doing as much media as we can. I'm fundraiser-in-chief for our ticket, so I'm trying to get from $5 million to $10 million. And we think that on the day that it's announced that we will be in the debates, from that moment forward, fundraising and endorsements will take care of themselves. I don't think that the marginal dollar is as significant now as it would have been 20 years ago, because now you've got things going viral, people making up their mind based on Facebook. You've got the debates themselves will be, I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars worth of free publicity. So I don't think we're going to be defeated by money. We could be defeated by the duopoly persuading the Presidential Commission to keep us out of the debates, even though it's becoming evident that we're going to win some states out in Gary Johnson land.
Like in the Southwest, do you think?
Yeah, Gary, the last poll out of Utah had Gary at 26, Trump at 29, and Clinton at 30. And that's up from 16 for Gary 10 days ago. Momentum is everything in politics. He's going to win the state of Utah.
Are you guys at all nervous that you'll break through that 15% barrier and then the commission will change the rules in some way to sandbag you?
No, I don't think they change the rules against us. I think they might change the rules to make it a little bit easier to get in. I mean, there's an overwhelming national interest in having us in the debates this year, because the two parties are not serving the public interest by just shooting blazing cannons at each other all the time and not talking about issues. It's all ad hominem, ad feminem, personal attacks. Gary and I are going to try our damnedest to avoid that entirely and just say, here's our platform, here are our solutions. And I would, if I were a member of that commission, I would think, yeah, I want a third party in there saying that and offering a third way, which is not a combination of positions that either other party offers. Neither of the other parties is socially open and tolerant and fiscally responsible.
A quick comment on the rest of the debates. This morning, Donald Trump made a comment encouraging Russian hackers to release more emails from the Hillary Clinton campaign. As an ambassador candidate, you understand, what it's like dealing with other countries, obviously. What's your reaction to that?
I think it's just another example of Mr. Trump changing the subject when he gets in a little bit of warm water. I mean, it's, if you take him seriously, it's an awful thing to say, hoping that the Russians will hack into U.S. records. I mean, he's already practically put a laurel crown on Vladimir Putin, who is no friend of the United States, who campaigns relentlessly within Russia against the West and says we're trying to encircle him, they must destroy us. And Trump is saying, Vladimir Putin is practically his favorite foreign leader. I know if you ask Trump, does he prefer Vladimir Putin or Barack Obama, the President of the United States, he wouldn't hesitate. He'd say Putin.
I don't doubt that. I feel like that's very right. He admires his leadership style. We got another user question.
A lot of people are asking about your stance on the TPP. Could you talk about that for a bit?
TPP's been a huge issue this whole time.
I think we're the only free trade ticket left now that Mrs. Clinton has said she's not going to be for the Pacific Trade Agreement, and she's not anymore in favor of the North American trade agreement. I can remember being in the Clinton White House with Bill Clinton, Newt Gingrich, myself, and Bill Daley from Illinois, who's the chief vote counter, late at night rounding up votes for the North American Free Trade Agreement. So it's obvious that Mrs. Clinton is not in the same place that her husband was in terms of being a centrist who saved the Democratic Party by leading it back to the middle. The TPP in particular, I think, is a good thing for the United States because it aligns us with 11 Asian nations, not including China. Gives us a beachhead in Asia and all the benefits of free trade in terms of lower prices for consumers. And it's a little bit of a counterweight to China, who is our number one counterparty in both economic and technically in military terms. Although I don't see any hot war or even a cold war with China. Too much is at stake there, and I think both countries are now sophisticated enough to know that we have to be, we'll have our differences, but we have to involve ourselves in constructive engagement.
I know that your ticket is making a play for Sanders supporters in with regards to optics, and I've noticed a lot of them have anti-TPP imagery on their signs and stuff. What do you have to say to a Sanders supporter that you're trying to pull over from the Democratic Party who is very passionate about not supporting the TPP?
Well, I think that the opponents of trade agreements always say, oh, there's something in here about employment that we don't like, there's something in here about the environment that we don't like, and there's always provisions that one could be critical of. But, let's not forget the economy and the position of the United States in the world. I think on both strategic, diplomatic grounds and economic grounds, that Pacific Trade Agreement is very much in the interest of the United States. When you do have free trade, the United States is always the winner because we have a huge advantage in productivity per worker. So that means that as free trade happens, we're going to get more high-wage jobs. We may lose some low-wage jobs, but the solution to that is to be aggressive about retraining, resettlement policies for lower-wage workers, for workers close to the bottom of the rung. The working poor, greatly increase the earned income tax credit. Just be aggressive about incentivizing industries where the pay is high. I mean, I think we need a national push to get wages up, and that's really the response to the people who are in that gap between the safety net and a real living wage.
Excellent, excellent. The last time we spoke, you told me about the historical precedents that shows that the Republican Party might split apart. You used the story of the Whig Party. After you saw what happened at the convention last week, do you feel like your theory on that is stronger or weaker?
Oh, I think a lot of people are following my lead on that, if you will. I've been talking for a month and a half about how the Trump wing of the Republican Party is like the know-nothing party, know-nothing wing of the Whig Party back in the 1850s. It was founded on anti-immigrant zeal. It was very racist, anti-Catholic, anti-German, anti-Italian, so it lasted only for a couple of years and then it died. Its other hallmarks were violent rallies and conspiracy theories. It's almost like somebody wrote a book about the Trump campaign. But it disappeared, and the other half of the party elected Abraham Lincoln 4 years later, so it doesn't have to be an unhappy ending. But, Mr. Trump has said himself that he sees a totally different Republican Party in 5 or 10 years. I think he's right. I think he's right on that. If he is presiding over that party, it's going to be very different. It'll be similar to the know-nothing party of the 1850s.
You, as again, from watching the RNC last week and seeing the kind of rhetoric that was going on, are you as an American and as a citizen, not as a political candidate, but just as an American, are you afraid of a Trump presidency personally?
Well, I think it's a frightening prospect for the United States if he does half of what he says he's going to do. I mean, he's going to tear up our international obligations. He is going to, act on the basis of racial and religious prejudice. There's no other word for it. To say I'm going to keep any Muslim from coming to the United States when, a majority of the fighting against ISIS is done by Muslim majority countries. The guy's not studying current events. He's certainly not reading history books. So I find it an alarming prospect. Yeah, I'm not personally frightened, but I I'm not sure Mr. Trump is serious about a lot of the things he says, and that's one of my major reservations. I don't think he studies up on the issues, foreign policy, or the fine points of domestic policy. He's obviously got a lot of shrewdness, a lot of cunning, very quick on his feet, but presidency demands more stability than that.
Yeah, and to quote every history teacher on TV shows, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. You're going to see these themes happening up.
Well, rounding up 11 million people in the dead of night is evocative of unhappy periods in European history.
It's almost too obvious and blatant. Just a quick reminder, I'm here with Governor Bill Weld. He was the governor of Massachusetts for a period of the 1990s, and right now he is running for vice president as the Libertarian nominee with Gary Johnson as his running mate. Do we have any more user questions before I... Awesome.
A lot of users are asking about your stance on healthcare, universal healthcare.
That's the stance on healthcare and universal healthcare.
See, I'm not one of those people who think it's productive to say if we get elected, the first thing we're going to do is repeal Obamacare root and branch on day one. No, I think that was an attempt to get more people into the system, which you have to do in order to control costs. And those are the two goals we should all jointly have in healthcare, is to increase the quality of care, get more people into the system, and control costs. The U.S. has the best healthcare system in the world, I do think. I think we could stand to have more competition, to have more user choice, health savings accounts where people can put away money for their own healthcare needs. People should be allowed to choose catastrophic coverage rather than, to choose a Chevrolet instead of a Cadillac. I don't think the government should make that decision for everybody. I think people should be able to shop across state lines for insurance. People should be able to shop across international lines for pharmaceuticals in Canada. So a lot more individual choice and less government top-down. So to that extent, I probably would seek to change, make amendments to the Obamacare model. But it's not 100% bad, and that's just an example of the two parties demonizing each other, and all they can say is, it's hot, it's cold, it's good, it's bad.
Do you think any kind of regulation over drug prices would be a possible instance where government could step in?
Regulation of drug prices? Well, I think de facto, if you move to a single-payer model, that kind of is that's the direction that Obamacare is going in.
Or if purchasing from Canada is an option, then the prices will naturally come down themselves?
Oh, no, they would come down. No, the industry would hate that. The insurance industry would hate shopping across state lines. It's the guild mentality of the 19th century. We got all these protections in the 19th century, and now we want to keep them for our guild. Well, as I was saying earlier, two of those guilds are the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So I believe in competition and free markets across the board. That's why Gary Johnson and I would like to let a little air in and have some competition in these debates.
Absolutely. Get a few alternate viewpoints in. I think we have another user question. Absolutely. Cool. Yeah, you guys are asking a lot of good stuff.
A lot of people are asking about reforming the path for citizenship for immigrants.
Citizenship?
Yeah, that's reforming the path to citizenship for immigrants, and your viewpoints on that.
Well, I think Mr. Trump's proposals on immigration are out of the question. And Gary Johnson was my running mate, was governor of a southwestern state. He understands that the movement of people to become temporary workers in the United States to provide for their families, that helps the United States labor force. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that if there are 11 million people who've come into this country whose papers are not in order, we're not saying they all have to become citizens, Canada has a very good guest worker program where people can come into Canada, become guest workers. It helps the Canadian economy. It helps Canadian businesses have the employees that they need, and then they leave. They go away. And, the people from Mexico who want to make a better life for their families, they'd be more than happy with that. Come here as guest workers and then go back to Mexico. I think the tide of immigrants from Mexico has ebbed a little bit as there's been some improvement in the Mexican economy. I think we should. There are things that could be done even on the other side of the border, more north-south roads, so that the benefits of the North American Free Trade Agreement are not merely in the maquiladoras near the border, but they go down all the way down. Ideally, you'd like to have it get down to Oaxaca and Guerrero, who are the very poor states in the south of the country. But on immigration, you don't need to say that all of those people are going to have a path to citizenship. I thought Mr. Obama did a pretty good start where he was saying, well, if you're DACA qualified, if you pay your taxes, there's no criminality, you finish this level of education, then you're entitled to certain presumptions. You have to go to the end of the line. You came here when you were 5 years old or less. I thought it was a shame when the Supreme Court threw that out.
And that's purely out of political party lines that got thrown out.
Yeah, that was pretty close to party line.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about climate change? What would you and President Johnson do to help combat the effects of climate change?
That's combating the effects of climate change and what the ticket would do to combat it.
So the elephant in the room there is getting rid of CO2. There are other gases that are worse. Methane is 35 times worse. But CO2, carbon dioxide, is the one everyone thinks about. I myself think that technology is going to play a major role here. I've been a little bit involved with clean energy topics. And if technology could solve the problem of carbon capture and sequestration so that the carbon could be captured and sequestered, say, in the ocean, that would be a giant leap forward. And I think that the United States, as a moral matter, should be supportive of the accords reached in Paris. Some of the less developed nations, let's say the South, for want of another word, say to the developed nations, let's call it the North, well, you want us to forego economic development. Now that you've had yours, you don't want us to have any economic development. So it's a complex conversation. But I think, it is clear that human activities are contributing to global warming, and we should just put that one to bed. The question is a matter of degree. How much do you spend to attack the problem? And I think we've got to be reasonable that it exists. And in terms of results, I would invest heavily in technology.
Obviously, as a democracy, nothing can literally disqualify someone from office. Well, almost nothing. But do you think not believing that climate change is caused by humans is kind of makes someone illegitimate for holding public office?
Well, that just shows that you're not listening and you're not reading. And that's a bad start. But I do think that not listening and not reading has applied to some of the statements that Mr. Trump has made in the international area.
Great. We've had a lot of really serious policy questions. I got a fun one. When you guys start to get more national attention, we know Donald Trump has called Hillary Crooked Hillary, called Ted Cruz Lying Ted Cruz. What would be his insulting nickname for you?
I don't know, Bonkers Bill.
Bonkers Bill, that's good. Donald, you listening? You can use that one. That was good. Maybe if we have one more user question, we can ask that. Otherwise, there's... Ending the Federal Reserve.
I think that may be in the Libertarian Party platform. I'm not there yet. I'm not even at ending the twin mission yet. But that's something Gary and I haven't talked through. And in some of our conversations, one or the other of us has moved a little bit. We would, in the area of what to do about tax policy, we both favor simplification of the tax code through different routes, though. So we're going to put them both out there on the table, tell the truth, and about what each of us thinks from any given point. But we will govern as a team and talk the issues through and reach a consensus as to how to go ahead.
And that really goes in line with your belief of being part of a party doesn't mean you need to blindly grab their entire platform.
No, quite the contrary. No, and Gary and I approach a lot of issues as agnostics. And, as Maynard Keynes said, when I see the facts change, I change my opinion. What do you do?
Yeah, so it's okay to, quote unquote, flip flop when there's new information available. Things change. Absolutely. I think we're going to sign off. Thank you so much for being with us here, Governor. If you want to see any of other interviews, go back in time down our page. There's a lot there. We'll be here all week at the DNC. keep an eye out for obviously the Libertarian nominees. That's very important. Thank you, and thanks you for your great questions. Those were really awesome and really got the discussion going. Thank you so much. Sometimes these things take a little while to turn off. We're in the media tent right now. Yesterday, a bunch of pro-Sanders protesters literally occupied this space. It was really quite fascinating to see because they wanted to get the media's attention. I was in here for a little while watching the protests. Think we're still on or not? Are we still on? Cool. Sometimes this happens. I guess while we're still on, I'll ask one more question. Great. Thank you. That's the one problem with Facebook.